Welcome to the Rare History Channel. Top 11 Jaw-Dropping Facts about Henry Ford. The American auto industry is one of the oldest in the world, having started more than a century ago. Henry Ford is among the pioneers of the American auto industry and is a big reason why it is one of the largest in the world. Ford was a brilliant American industrialist who began his career as an engineer, but quit his job to be an entrepreneur. Henry Ford is best known for founding the Ford Motor Company, but his impact was felt far beyond the world of cars. A man of many talents, Ford had a deep passion for science and development and is widely considered to be among the most influential people in history. Let's explore 10 awesome facts about Henry Ford. Fact number 1. He bought an airline company. After World War I, planes generated interest in many. Ford was not left behind. He had always vowed to fly. He invested in Stout Model Airplane Company, a company that had perfected an all-air metal transport in 1923. His ambitions knew no bounds. Several attempts were made that led him to mass-producing bombers in World War II. His son, who had also devoted his life to the airline, died in 1943, not having seen the end of the war. Ford, however, lived a couple more years and witnessed proudly his work in full force. Number 2. He worked for Thomas Edison. Although Henry Ford was born on a farm, he despised farm work. So in 1879, Ford left his home at the age of 16 and moved to Detroit to look for work. Over the next decade, Ford had various jobs, including a pocket watch repairman, an apprentice machinist, and a steam engine serviceman. Ford's big break came in 1891 when he was hired as an engineer for the Edison Illuminating Company of Detroit. Ford quickly rose up the ranks and was promoted to chief engineer in 1893. Ford was later introduced to Thomas Edison in 1896, and they eventually became lifelong friends. Number 3. Ford's family owned slaves. When he first visited Bryan County, Georgia, in the late 1920s, he noticed that the once flourishing county had been left behind after the Depression. He decided to invest. He bought the land. He built schools, hospitals, and even churches. In the end, he did improve the livelihood of the people in the area, but ended up controlling how they dressed, worshipped, and what they learned in schools. When he died, the county that had flourished in his lifetime slowly declined as it had become so dependent on his leadership. All the land ended up being sold. Number 4. Ford was a high school dropout. Ford did not go to high school. He left school after finishing 8th grade. He was 16 years at the time he left his farm. He went ahead to acquire an apprenticeship. Even after leaving school, he was named Businessman of the Century by Fortune magazine in 1999. Ford tried to take up the company's presidency after his son died of cancer, but a series of strokes and illnesses curtailed him. He finally kicked the bucket on April 7, 1947, of a cerebral hemorrhage aged 83 beside his wife and household staff. Ford Motor Company leadership was taken up by his grandson, Henry Ford II, as he had earlier recommended. Number 5. A conspiracy theorist. Ford may have been a brilliant inventor and businessman, but he wasn't immune to conspiracy theories. Many of these conspiracy theories landed Ford in deep trouble, but he didn't seem to mind. Ford mostly shared the conspiracy theories on the Dearborn Independent, a weekly newspaper Henry Ford published from 1919 to 1927. One of the most controversial stories published in the Dearborn Independent was a set of booklets titled The International Jew, which portrayed Jews as an evil that was spreading fast. Number 6. He did not drink alcohol. Ford did not advocate for alcohol. He believed in delivering in the best way possible. He believed that alcohol affected the efficiency of his workers, that he opinioned that alcohol should have been abolished. Ford only drank warm water. Number 7. Ford's nickname was Crazy Henry. Ford's obsession with innovation acquired him the nickname Crazy Henry at a young age. After he married Clara in 1888, he got a job at the Edison Illuminating Company in 1891. Every night, he experimented in the garage behind his house. The neighbors called him Crazy Henry for his obsession, but in 1896 he rolled out his first self-propelled vehicle, the Ford quadricycle. With encouragement from Thomas Edison, Ford kept experimenting and began to believe he could create his own automobile company. Number 8. He made cars affordable for the poor. Henry Ford grew up poor on a farm in Springwells Township, Michigan. As such, he always had a passion for helping poor people when he grew older, which is exactly what he did. As mentioned earlier, Ford introduced the moving assembly to the auto industry, reducing the time it took to build a car and significantly reducing prices. As a result, the Model T cost just $825 in 1908, a price that kept dropping every year until the 1920s. Number 9. An advocate for persons with disabilities. Henry Ford had a big heart and was always ready to help the disadvantaged members of society. One particular group Ford had a soft spot for was the disabled. To help them, Ford made sure that the blind, deaf, and other people living with disabilities could get jobs in his company. By the 1920s, more than 20% of the Ford Motor Company workforce had some form of disability. Number 10. One of the richest men in history. Ford's first vehicle, a Model T, is among the best-selling vehicles of all time, having sold more than 15 million units. As a result, Ford became one of the largest American automakers and kept growing as the years went by. After the company's success, Ford became one of the richest men in the U.S., with an estimated net worth of $200 billion, adjusted for inflation. The only person richer than Henry Ford at the time was oil magnate John D. Rockefeller. Number 11. A pacifist. Henry Ford was strongly against war, as he viewed it as a terrible waste of time and resources. Ford was one of the first big American businessmen to publicly oppose the First World War. Ford was so against war that he funded a peace ship to Europe, where he led 170 activists on a peace mission to neutral Sweden. Ford was also against World War II, and even went as far as claiming that the torpedoing of U.S. ships by German submarines was actually done by financier warmakers.